if you're in the position now where you haven't yet made your business and you get to decide what you want your business to be like, that's the ultimate advantage for you. You get to choose.
These myths is really, what I hate to see is that it stops people taking action because they believe them to be true.
So it's the same with dropshipping. It's just evolved. It's moved on from the days of AliExpress and Oberlo and throwing up a quick burner Shopify store and then chucking some Facebook ad traffic towards it and hoping you're going to make your millions that way. So
inevitably with any market, the customers are going to decide what they'll accept. And now it's clear that customers want fast delivery.
It transforms the business model. It means that you get to make so much more profit per order.
I think making higher profit per order, over £300 for every single sale, compared to £10 to £20, I know which type of business I would run.
Well, I think the most important step you can take is just making sure. Welcome to the Dropship Unlocked podcast. I'm Lewis Smith, the founder of Dropship Unlocked, and with me is our client success coach, James Eardley. Now, when we're not recording the podcast episodes, we're running our own e-commerce businesses and helping aspiring entrepreneurs launch their own high-ticket dropshipping businesses. Keen to build your own 6 or even 7-figure business? My book, The Home Turf Advantage, is your blueprint for launching a profitable online store. Grab your copy at htabook.com today and let's get you started. Now sit back, relax, and let's unlock your potential with the Dropship Unlocked podcast.
Today, we're tackling the top 5 dropshipping myths that kill your dreams head on. These are the myths that might be holding you back from starting an online business, or they'll have you second guessing your next move. Lewis, I know you will have heard these all before, but it's time we set the record straight, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. Time to set the record straight. There's so much misinformation out there when it comes to dropshipping. So yeah, we really want to try and help our listeners understand what dropshipping really involves today. And if it means busting some myths to do so, then so be it.
Yeah, so I guarantee people listening will have heard these myths. And these myths is really, what I hate to see is that it stops people taking action because they believe them to be true. So it's important that we bust these today. The first myth, okay, from the top 5 is dropshipping is dead. You may have heard this around before, so it's a big one. We'll kick off with this one. So people say that dropshipping is dead. What's your take, Lewis?
Dropshipping isn't dead. That would be the myth being busted. It's just merely evolved. It's a new kind of dropshipping that is working in this day and age. It's a bit like saying social media is dead because nobody uses MySpace anymore. You know, it then became Facebook, it then became Snapchat, TikTok, whatever it is the kids are using now. It's like whatever the next platform is, doesn't matter. Social media as a concept isn't dead. And so it's the same with dropshipping. It's just evolved. It's moved on from the days of AliExpress and Oberlo and throwing up a quick burner Shopify store and then chucking some Facebook ad traffic towards it and hoping you're going to make your millions that way. So the people seeing real success with dropshipping now in this day and age are the ones that are focusing on building a quality brand, and they're going really deep on niche markets. So they're building out their brand, they're building customer trust, loyalty, and they're taking it seriously, treating it like a real business. So it's far from being dead. And I think it's more important now than ever to understand that there are just different types of dropshipping businesses. When you hear the blanket term of dropshipping, it's very easy to kind of just write off the whole model. But the model that I teach at Dropship Unlocked is what I call the home turf advantage model, which is built on solid long-term foundations, the business fundamentals for building a long-term brand, an asset that you could one day even decide to exit and sell. So our episode with one of our members, Phil, is a really good episode into this because it showcases how dropshipping is very much alive and thriving for those who adapt and focus on adding value. Phil started from zero and joined us as a member at Dropship Unlocked in our masterclass program fairly recently and has reached £162,000 in sales in his first 5 months. That's starting from zero, and that's in episode 43 of the Dropship Unlocked podcast. So definitely one to have a listen to if you have any doubt as to whether dropshipping is still a viable model or not.
Well, we hear it so often, but that's why it's so important for us to have guests and members on the podcast, because you can hear from people that have just started dropshipping businesses this year or a few months ago, and you can see exactly how they're getting on. So whenever I see this dropshipping is dead tagline that obviously gets clicks, it makes me laugh because I can just look at my Shopify store analytics for the last week and question, well, obviously it's not dead if we've done sort of 20k in sales in the last week. It makes me chuckle. Obviously, I can see the intentions behind people trying to hype that up. But as you say, Lewis, dropshipping is such a broad word that purely means the logistical model of getting your products to your customers directly from suppliers. How can that, as a logistical model, die? Because it's so cost effective for every retailer getting started. And so hopefully we've busted that myth, which had to be approach number 1, I think. So myth number 2 for you now, Lewis, is long delivery times is often associated with dropshipping. And you hear about the notorious 3 or 4 week delivery time that you'd expect if you're going to set up a dropshipping business. So what do you think about that as an idea? Do you think 3 to 4 week delivery time is essential or all you can achieve with a dropshipping business?
No, definitely not. We can bust this myth immediately. My average delivery time on one of my stores, just for example, is less than 3 working days, right? So compare that to, when you said 3 to 4 weeks, I think that even that's fairly optimistic for some of these stores where they're shipping products from China, because that doesn't account for things like holidays in the country in which you're shipping them from, or items getting delayed at the border, hitting like customs export duty charges and being kept at the border. So really like getting the products out the very next business day, or certainly within 1 to 2 to 3 working days, is a realistic approach with the home turf advantage model. Now, with that being said, I'm not dropshipping products across the planet. There's a reason why we're able to achieve that on our stores. And it's because I'm not selling products directly from China and having them dispatched straight to our customers from China. I'm partnering with UK-based suppliers and having them ship, or not even ship, just dispatch the items directly to customers in the UK, usually. And that means that those items can be delivered very, very quickly from within the UK. And so what that means is that they can be delivered usually the very next day, which just makes customers so much happier. It means that it's simpler from our side from a fulfillment standpoint. We can just add a shipping tracking number to the item, to the product, and then the customer gets notified by SMS or by email about the status of their delivery. And so just using local suppliers can slash delivery times down to days. We're going from like 30, 60 days sometimes, ridiculous delivery times where items have to travel around the globe and maybe they don't get dispatched until a shipping container is full, at which point they get sent out. By the time it arrives, the customer's forgotten about it. So if you can get your items out to customers within days, it's just a game changer for your customer satisfaction. And so I know where the myth comes from. It's the myth from the traditional dropshipping model that sparked the initial explosion of interest that we saw in dropshipping, where the advice was just to sign up with suppliers on the other side of the world, AliExpress, Oberlo, Temu, whatever the new shiny site is that's doing that. And the reason for that is because there was a really perceived low barrier to entry. It just was easy. You just go on, you sign up, you order the product, and it's great. And you put a huge markup on it and no one asks any questions and the customers delight. Like, the customers aren't delighted. It's not realistic. It takes ages to get it, if it ever arrives at all. The items are usually very poor quality. And so coming back to the home turf advantage model, if you can build strong relationships with local suppliers, so by local, we mean in the country in which your customers are based, because that's the important part there. It's the distance between the two. You could be running the business from Australia or from America or from Brazil. You could be anywhere in the world running it from just your laptop or even just your phone. But it's the proximity between the suppliers and the customers that matters to significantly reduce that delivery time. And so it's like going from the days of having to post letters, and go and write your letter out on a piece of paper and put a stamp on it and then wrap it up and put it in the envelope and send it through the post box. Now you can just send a WhatsApp message to someone, right? It's the same end result. Technically, they're getting a message, they're getting a text form message. It's just that it's so much faster when you adopt the more efficient system. Customers eventually get their products with the old type of dropshipping, but it's just way more efficient and faster and sets a much higher standard of customer service when customers receive their items very quickly, certainly 1 to 2 working days.
Yeah, times have moved on from that old style of dropshipping where you'd expect a few weeks for your suppliers to be able to get the products to customers. And they've moved on because the market's moved on. Customers have moved on. They no longer can accept that. When that initial thing, that sort of craze happened, I guess customers weren't aware of how long it was going to take. But inevitably with any market, the customers are going to decide what they'll accept. And now it's clear that customers want fast delivery. We've adapted to that. And the home turf advantage model that you teach, Lewis, is all about that, having a home turf advantage, being able to get products from our suppliers to our customers within 3 working days at a maximum. So no, it's fantastic. And it really is a difference that we can have over, different dropshipping stores. The third myth is that you can only sell cheap products. And the idea of having a dropshipping store is that you dropship little cheap trinkets. Is that true, Lewis? Do you think that you can only dropship cheap products?
Well, this is another myth that needs to be busted. So it's funny, yesterday I was out shopping with my wife. We went to a shopping centre and I had to buy some new gym clothes. I needed some new stuff for running at the gym and stuff. I went into good old trusty Sports Direct, right? I'm sure we've all been there. We know the drill. It's kind of packed up to the ceiling with like unopened stock boxes. There seems to be products like so high that I don't understand how anyone could ever get to them. I just needed to buy a couple of things, right? So I picked up, I think it was like 2 t-shirts and 2 sets of shorts for the gym. First challenge you experience in there is like, how do you find anyone to help you? There's not a single staff member inside. There was one lady who was like behind the till of about 15 people in the queue. So eventually I did get her attention. I just said, I'm just going to try some of these on in the changing rooms. And she looked at me and she was like, can't take 4 items in there. You can only take 3. And I was like, I think she thought I was going to like try and run out and steal all of the gym clothes whilst carrying my clothes out the store. So just like all in all, just a really poor experience, just from start to finish. Like, of course, yes, I got the end product, but the way that it was kind of managed, like I felt like I was almost being accused of theft before I'd even purchased the item. Contrast that to a store I went into later and walked into Reese, the clothes shop. And as I picked up one of the shirts, it was like, they've got that like premium white kind of paper that's like wrapped within the shirt. It's so nicely folded. You almost feel like it's ruining the display to even pick it up and like check out the clothes and look at it. It's just such a different experience. You ask to try something on and they're like, yes, absolutely, sir. Please take a seat. Like, here's the changing rooms. And it's all like luxury velvet curtain. And it's really nice high end. Now, the funny thing is the cost to make the 2 items, the ones from the high end shop and then the ones from the low end shop, probably isn't that far off. If you kind of compare like actual factory manufacturing costs, yeah, there's probably a bit of a difference because they're definitely better quality. And the margin percentages will be way different because the experience in the high-end shop is so much better. And because of that, people will pay so much more for that premium service. And so the quality of interactions as well, if you imagine that you owned both of those shops, right? You're the owner, you're the shopkeeper. Imagine your interactions with and how customers treat you and interact with you in those 2 environments. They're worlds apart, aren't they? The high-end shop is going to attract people probably with more money, more disposable income. They're going to probably be more pleasant to deal with because they're not looking just for the best deal and it's like price. Possibly, there's going to be a bit more patience. You can work in a more calm environment. Look, I'm not knocking Sports Direct. They're both good shops, but for me, I know which one I would rather have my business actually resemble, if I was the business owner of them. And it's the same with e-commerce. By focusing on high ticket items, so higher priced items, it transforms the business model. It means that you get to make so much more profit per order. You don't need as many items there. Therefore, you can offer a way higher level of customer service, better quality customers usually coming through because there's higher requirement to buy the items financially. So it just transforms the type of business. And it's like going from running a pound shop to owning a flagship boutique store in a high-end shopping center. And so selling higher quality products as well means that you need fewer customers, which means you have fewer customer issues to deal with. You have better margins to deal with. And it's just a much better ownership experience. Now, of course, both of those models can make money. And I'm sure Sports Direct are very profitable. But the point is, it's a different game. It's a volume game, isn't it? It's not necessarily a like luxurious experience that you're then going to go and tell all your friends about. That's not what they're aiming for. But at this stage, if you're in the position now where you haven't yet made your business and you get to decide what you want your business to be like, that's the ultimate advantage for you. You get to choose. And so if you are at that fork in the roads at the moment where you think, actually, I like the sound of a higher ticket business and I'd prefer to offer that premium luxury level of service to my customers, then check out episode 26 we did of the Dropship Unlocked podcast, where we dive deep into the model of high ticket dropshipping and we really explained the benefits of selling higher ticket, high quality products. The episode title was called 3 Steps to Build a High Profit Dropshipping Store. And it was episode 26.
Yeah, and the key there is that we have a decision when we first start a business about whether to sell cheap products and therefore a high volume of orders with a lower quality of customer on the whole, or you have the choice to go into a high profit per order store with larger items with, often in excess of £1,000. And so you've got less admin, less customers to deal with. And you have that choice from the very start. And we both run low ticket stores, and we now run high ticket dropshipping stores. And my two stores have average order values of over £1,000. And I can say from experience, you can do both with the same level of skill and expertise. The difficulty to sell a high ticket product is exactly the same as selling a low ticket product. So when we have the choice, I think making higher profit per order, over £300 for every single sale compared to £10 to £20, I know which type of business I would run. And that's the way I do it, and I'd recommend for everyone else. Myth number 4, Lewis, is another common one that we hear, and it's more about the perception of dropshipping itself. So there's a myth that dropshipping is not a serious business. And so people think when they hear about somebody that's a dropshipper or whether to start a dropshipping business, they almost don't take it seriously. So my question for you, Lewis, is do you think that dropshipping is a serious business?
Yeah, I've heard this one many times as well. And when I hear it, I kind of just smile because inwardly I know that it very much is. It comes down to how you treat the business model. When you go into it, what your expectations are as a business owner, because you'll project the type of business that you create. If you treat dropshipping with a professional approach and you go into it and say, this is a serious business that I'm going to create as a brand that one day I want to go and sell, then it kind of becomes this self-fulfilling prophecy. You know how they say you should dress for the job that you want, not the one you have? Well, do the same thing with your business. Create the business that you want, not the one that everyone tells you maybe isn't a serious business model. Because I can assure you there are many global businesses that started out as dropshipping businesses and then maybe even evolved. And actually, there are many that didn't need to evolve. Wayfair, for example, who've become a globally recognized, extremely profitable brand who still predominantly use dropshipping as their primary source of or method of fulfillment straight from suppliers. So if you take it seriously from the outset, if you focus on the fundamentals, if you build really strong foundations and just view it as this long-term venture that you are building, you're growing a brand, you're building it so that one day you could sell that business as an asset. With the right strategy, dropshipping can scale like any other business. So it doesn't have to be viewed as just an entry-level business model. Although it is a great entry point into entrepreneurship, you can absolutely take it to the next level. It reminds me of one of our members that has done exactly this, a gentleman called Jared. And he started out considering all the different business models. I remember having a call with him and he was kind of looking into the different options that he could run, having not run an online business like this before. And I remember having a chat with him about whether this was a serious business model for long-term growth. He was an ambitious guy. He wanted to make sure that the model he went into had scalability, opportunity baked into it, and it wasn't going to hit a ceiling or get to a point where he realized that the whole thing wasn't viable. And so he followed and applied my home turf advantage model with his business and has now hit £4 million in revenue and growing from there. It was a really interesting conversation we had with him recently on the podcast. We dived into his journey, start to finish, or not finish, start to where he's at now. That was episode 39 of the podcast. So that's worth a listen. Episode 39 is testament to the seriousness and potential of dropshipping if you treat it like a real serious business.
It comes down to that old saying that if you treat it like a hobby, it will pay you like a hobby. But if you treat it like a serious business, then you'll get paid like a serious business gets paid. And that's up to you and how you approach it. And I know for me, when I joined the Dropship Unlocked Masterclass, that flicked a switch in me to make sure I knew I was taking this seriously. I had a proper training coach, I had you as a mentor, and I knew therefore I would take it seriously and make it work. And so it's paid me seriously now. And now my first brand that I've still got is a dropshipping business, but now I'm doing things like kit sponsorships. We're a kit sponsor for a football team. It's serious business moves that you can make with a business, even if dropshipping is your fulfillment model. So you can absolutely have a serious business. I think a lot of the time is the way that you approach it. As long as you approach it seriously, then you'll get paid seriously as well. So the final myth, Lewis, that we hear a lot, myth number 5, is that you can learn how to dropship with 3 or 4 free YouTube videos. And you're promised the world sometimes with how quickly you can learn dropshipping, and maybe watch one 10-minute video on YouTube and you're away and you'll generate thousands the next month. Question for you there, Lewis. Do you think you can learn everything from YouTube?
Well, it's a funny one. There's no doubt there's a lot of information on YouTube, but it's funny. Like, so yesterday I was sitting down with my son in the playroom, and he's 2 years old, right? And he's sitting down and he's like, "Daddy, come and play with me." So I walked into the room and I kind of got to distract him before dinner time. Otherwise he's like wandering around, trying to cause havoc in the house. And so he's surrounded by puzzle pieces because he's got like a load of different puzzles out. And so he's like, "Dad, help me do the puzzle. Like help me with the puzzle." So I'm sitting down, picking these pieces up, and I was like, right, let's start with the corners of, that's my puzzle strategy. Always start with the edges and then try and kind of work your way into the middle. I'm like, okay, I've got a Fireman Sam corner there, so I put that there, and then, oh, that's the helicopter, from Fireman Sam. And then the next minute I'm like, that's a goat. That doesn't seem right. But I was like, okay, we'll kind of put that there. And that looks like the bottom right corner, but it's slightly bigger, but okay, that's fine. And then I'm like, looking around, and then suddenly there's a helicopter and there's a Peppa Pig character. I'm like, Peppa Pig's not from Fireman Sam. Like, and then I realized we're doing like 3 different puzzles that he's just like mashed together in this bag. Haven't got any of the boxes anymore. I think tore those up. So now we're trying to piece together these 3 different puzzles. And I'm like, no wonder he's struggling with this. He's got no box photo to follow. He's piecing the thing together from all these different puzzle pieces. Half of them are like upside down, different characters. Some of them are like chewed, so the ends are missing. And so it made me think, this is what it's like for people trying to piece together everything themselves without knowing what they're aiming for or having that blueprint to follow, without having the box that the puzzle came in to follow. It's like fragmented learning. There's no doubt YouTube has a valuable content for sure, but it's scattered. The primary goal of people on YouTube is not to necessarily give you a systematic step-by-step process. It's to just get views for their videos. That's how they make their money. So it's like trying to complete a puzzle with all the pieces from all the different sets, where one person's telling you one thing, another person's contradicting it because they've got some vested interest in a different way of doing it. And then before you know it, you've got all these like half kind of formed ideas. It becomes very expensive. You end up making all these mistakes, and you think, why doesn't it fit together? There's no congruency. There's no one to ask because there's no single source of information. And so it's just why structured learning is always the model that I would go to now if I'm trying something new for the first time. I want to invest in a structured program or mentorship that can guide me and accelerate my learning journey and get me to success with the fewest errors and costly mistakes possible.
Yeah, and no doubt there's information out there on YouTube, and that's the way I started when I first wanted to learn. The difficulty is that you then need to source the videos, and you're often listening to different people's perspectives, people in different countries, people with different business models, people with different advice, different opinions, and trying to piece all that together to create a business that works all together is a very difficult task. So instead, if you just follow one piece, one person or one person's advice, and learn how they made it work, and then just follow that from start to finish, you're going to give yourself a much better chance of succeeding. So let's wrap up today's myth-busting session then, Lewis. If you could share one piece of actionable advice for people to take away from this episode, what would that be?
Well, I think the most important step you can take is just making sure you arm yourself with that knowledge, that blueprint, the puzzle photo on the box. It's going to be the antidote to all of the doubt, and the foundation of any successful business will always come from making sure you have the right strategy to follow in the first place. It stops you spinning your wheels needlessly trying to figure it out. So it's why I always recommend starting with a solid understanding of the model. So understand the dropshipping model that you're building your business around. And there is no better place to start than with my book, The Home Turf Advantage. It's a comprehensive guide that firstly, it debunks the myths that we talked about today, but it also then walks you through the steps of building a successful e-commerce business grounded in the reality of today's e-commerce market, like we talked about in today's episode. So to check that out, head to htabook.com. That, I think, really is a great first step towards building a business like this that aligns with your dreams, your ambitions. And if you want to be a real serious brand owner and a business owner, then that is a great place to start. Remember, it's not just about knowledge. Knowledge is scattered all over the internet, all over YouTube, but it's about having a strategy and implementing that strategy correctly to get you towards success.
Enjoying the podcast? We'd love to hear from you. Leave a comment or a review, and we might just feature it on an upcoming episode. Also, for detailed show notes and resources, head to dropshipunlock.com/podcast.
If you found value from any episode of this podcast, please take just 10 seconds to leave us a quick 5-star review on your podcast app of choice. It helps us more than you could imagine. And who knows, you might just hear your comments on the show. Thanks for being part of our community. Your support helps us keep delivering a new episode every week.
Now, it's time to answer a question from a listener. So remember, if you want your questions answered on a podcast episode, all you need to do is drop a comment underneath the YouTube video version of this episode. And that's exactly what Ilyas Khan has done. So thank you for your question. So he's asked, he said, well, very informative podcast first, but how do we analyze the niche that we are going into before we find a supplier?
Yeah, it's a great question because it's absolutely essential to analyze a niche before we go and start finding suppliers. That's definitely the first step you want to do, because baked into that analysis of the niche is finding out whether there are suppliers that will work with you. So it will save you a lot of time and wasted effort and rejection by just doing that research first. To answer the question, to analyze a niche and find out whether it's going to be a winner or will have potential to succeed, we'd want to take any niche ideas that we have through our 9-step validation criteria. So that means that you're only ever going to be actually building the store or signing suppliers and then running ads once you know already that your niche has potential and is proven to already have succeeded with other retailers. For example, if you had an idea for a high-ticket dropshipping business and you thought, I might sell ski equipment, for example, right? So you decided that was one of your niche ideas. I would take the idea of ski equipment through my 9-step validation criteria. So that would involve looking at the average price of the items you're looking at. That would involve looking at search demand. How often are these items searched by customers in the market you're selling to? We can use tools online to do that. What about price consistency? Are they the same price across different retailers, or are some undercutting horrifically and ruining it for everyone else? Don't want to go into a market like that. Is it really seasonal? Is it only popular in the winter, for example? Do people only ski in the winter and look for that equipment in the winter? In which case, do I want my business to be contingent on one popular period and then the rest of the year it dries up? Probably not. Is it a trend? Is it something like, fidget spinners or those kind of hoverboards that everyone used to go on, and then suddenly there was a boom in them and then they kind of seem to just disappear? Is it something that is a market that people can get passionate about because it can just really help with your marketing if it is? So there are all these different criteria that we look at. And then once we're sure it meets either all or enough of those criteria for us to be happy that we can move ahead, and it's based on data, not on emotion, at that point, we would proceed with the next step, which would be then building the actual store. So for full details of how we choose a niche, how we sign suppliers and do that whole process, if you check out episode 22 of the podcast, it's called How to Sign UK Dropshipping Suppliers.
Perfect. A great question. And yeah, that process of finding a winning niche is like gold dust, because you can take any idea you've got, and then before you start running ads, before you start signing suppliers, you know that it's already been proven before you even start. So thank you for that answer, Lewis. Now let's highlight a recent review that we've had in for the podcast as well. And a big thank you to Papa Brood for sharing your thoughts on Apple Podcasts. And their review, they said, I've been looking for a solution like this for years. I signed up in the latter part of 2022 and all questions have been answered. Thank you, Dropship Unlocked.
Amazing. Thank you very much for your review. Really glad to hear that you've been enjoying the podcast, and more importantly, that you've been enjoying the masterclass program and the community there as well. Do you want a chance to join our Dropship Unlocked masterclass community for free? If so, simply leave us a review for the podcast on your favorite podcast platform. Check out episode 52 of the podcast for full details on how to enter that competition.
Thanks for joining us on this episode of the Dropship Unlocked podcast. We hope you're walking away with insights and inspiration.
To kickstart your e-commerce journey, grab a copy of my book, The Home Turf Advantage, at htabook.com. It's a distilled guide based on real experience to help you build your e-commerce venture.
Don't forget to hit the subscribe button for more strategies and success stories. And if you like what you heard, a 5-star review would mean the world to us, and you might just get a shout out on an upcoming episode.
And finally, thank you for deciding to spend your time with us today. We can't wait to bring you more insights on the next episode of the Dropship Unlocked podcast.